You're listening to the Men in Blazers Media Network, Suboptimal Radio.
I did get some coaching points about make sure the ball hits the back of the net when you're finishing your tap ins. And I was like, why? Do you get an extra point for it hitting the back of the net, or does it just have to cross the line?
It's Rog, back with another glorious episode of The Women's Game, presented by Paramount Plus, and it really is a joy to welcome back my co-host, a pathfinder wherever she goes. Yes, it's that queen of the Harvard Board of Overseers, equal pay warrior, fit dripping, dad advice sharing, goal scoring, really one of my favourite people in the whole of the National Women's Soccer League, from your Gotham FC and US Women's National Team. Welcome back, the mighty Midge Purce.
Thanks for having me back.
Oh, Midge, I am elated to have you back because so much has happened in the tiny amount of time, the crevice of space since we last spoke, including the equal pay deal, which we will talk of in one moment. But wow, since you were last on, you, Midge, have played Angel City in LA and won, making good on your wish from episode 1.
I cannot wait to kill them at home.
You said it and you manifested it into a dub. What was the experience like of playing at that stadium before that fan base in that atmosphere, and how did it compare to the other magical women's football cultures like Portland?
Firstly, I will say we definitely did not kill them. They were fantastic. They had 15 corners. I think it was maybe 10 of them in the last 10 minutes of the game where I was standing in our 18 for literally 15 minutes trying to defend corners. And I'm going to be very honest with you. While the competitor in me is saying they're not going to score, nothing's going to happen, I am a woman of science and math. And the odds presented with 15 corners suggested that one was going to go in. But it was beautiful. Their fans are incredible. They have their own culture. I loved the way they chanted each player's name before the game started. It was amazing. It was absolutely incredible. The smoke that I choked on, I don't know if it was intentional for the away team to be sick by it, but it worked. We all were coughing and heaving, but it looked really cool in the pictures.
A new dawn. And talking of a new dawn, the equal pay deal, which was announced on May 18th. A truly seismic moment that we haven't talked about yet together, but it's a fight that you were deeply involved in as a collective bargaining agreement committee member for the US Women's National Team Players Association. And they have been so busy the past couple of weeks, to say the least. You, in the media, press appearances, quotes for the New York Times. First off, can you take us back, Midge, to the moment you found out about the deal for the first time? Where were you? Describe the scene.
Truthfully, there was never a moment that said, it's done, it's complete. There was just a process of getting closer and closer, which is, I think, really parallel to any other journey that's meaningful. It was months of nearly getting certain things. It was weeks of just getting close to the final line. The moment that I can talk about is the moment I knew we were going to announce it. The moment where it said, okay, we've been getting close to it. We can say effectively that we have achieved equal pay. And I truthfully felt relief. I think a lot of people were either upset or surprised that I wasn't just overly elated, just pure positivity, happiness, jumping up and down. I more was a relaxed shoulder, a shoulder shrug that said, oh, I have peace now. This is great. It's a wonderful thing. Well, the whole fight in itself is disheartening. You're fighting for value, worth that's equal to men. And to have to fight for it in the first place is a loss. but it's great to win the fight, to win the battle. And I'm grateful for everyone who was a part of it, for everyone who pushed it across the line, to the men who helped push it across the line. It was an absolute fantastic collective effort through all parties. But yeah, you can't ask me to jump up and down just because you gave me something I should have had.
And along with Becky Sauerbrunn, that footballing Arya Stark, you became the lead spokesperson for the equal pay deal. And I loved watching you because I'll take a Midge Purce press conference any day of the week. But it's something I've been wondering about, as it was almost a noticeable passing of the baton from players like Europeanos, Alex Morgan, who were the face of this lawsuit for so long. Is it something you all discussed amongst yourselves and that you volunteered for, or did it just kind of happen naturally?
I haven't looked at myself as a leading spokesperson in this. I think that title was initiated by yourself. And I'm grateful for it. Thank you. I will run with it. No, it wasn't talked about, but I think Alex, Becky, Pino, they have always created and promoted a culture of inclusivity despite age. And the rhetoric was always, we're in this together and we are all equally important in this fight. That we need every single person, no matter if you have 1 cap or 300 caps, you're in this and we need you to step forward. So I was just grateful that whatever my skills were, I could be used in this way that helped the fight.
I'm fascinated. Now that the deal is done, now that the weight is off your shoulders, well, you've had a chance to think about what you imagine the rest of the world will do now. We see up in Canada already the women's national team fighting for their agreement. What's your message to other women players negotiating with their federations around the world?
I think what we've done is groundbreaking, not just for the sport, but for women across all industries. I think it's an example for women to point to and say, here's the precedent, and now here's the standard. And I think it's going to put a lot of pressure on other federations and other CEOs and business persons to say, okay, it's possible. You can't tell me that it hasn't been done. We don't know what it looks like. Here's a way to do it.
God bless to all Canadian listeners, especially you, Janine Becky. But out of curiosity, what did your old man, your dad, James Purce, say after the deal was finally announced?
My dad basically told me, you don't get rewarded for doing what you're supposed to do. That was also his sentiment when it all happened. He was great. He was very happy, but he was saying this is what they're supposed to do. So it's great. Good.
Yeah, I spend a larger and larger amount of my time thinking about the world through James Purce's eyes since you and I started talking. And I have been thinking about something you told me last time you were on, about how your dad didn't want you to play professionally, thought there was no future in it, and how much of a fight it was to convince him to back down on that. And do you think if you were coming up now in 2022, going in off the college draft, newly on the national team radar, this equality legislation in place, do you think his reaction would be different?
I think it would be different in some ways, yes. I think he wouldn't be as obstinate. I still think he would put a lot of pressure for a plan B. However, I think it would be more of a viable professional option. Yeah, I think what we've done is created stability in the league, in the sport for the United States. People like my dad now can get behind their daughters playing professional soccer. It's definitely a career path.
Talking about a career path, let's go back to the beginning for just one moment. You grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland, just outside of DC, and you followed your brother JP into soccer after your father, the aforementioned Papa Purce, mandated that both of you play both a sport and a musical instrument. Did you have a eureka moment in soccer growing up? Was there a moment, a game, even a person maybe, who made you think, this is what I want to do for as long as I'm able? Or was it more of a gradual process?
I grew up not really knowing about the national team. It wasn't something that my family or friends knew about or were really aware of. Even as I was playing soccer, I had a very distant relationship with the full team until I got a little bit older and I was getting called into some camps I was about 15 or 16 when I met April Heinrichs. U.S. icon in women's soccer, tremendous midfielder, playing perfect through balls for the entirety of her career.
A legend.
A legend in U.S. soccer who actually had a pivotal momentum changing effect on my path. I was at a camp, U17s, U15, something like that. And I was having a good camp. I was playing well. And she pulled me aside and she said, I think you could be on the full team. The idea of that was just, it was insane to me. It wasn't really on my radar. In a different time, I remember her saying to the entire group, not many people get the chance to be the best in the world at something. But when you play for the U.S. women's national team, you get the chance to be the best in the world at something. And when she told me that she thought that I could really be the best in the world at something, it blew me away. And I was like, I want to do that. You know, for a long time, I played to be the best of who was around me. I have a very natural, competitive perspective on things. I was always staying after practice. I was always doing extra stuff that was inherent to who I was. But now, when I was staying after practice, I had the national team in mind. You know, I was looking at players who I wanted to play like and who I needed to imitate because I thought that's what the national team wanted. It just more focused a lot of my energy.
Out of interest, what was your musical instrument, Midge Purce?
Oh, I was second chair violinist.
Oh. And could have been a concert level, I bet.
Not if Alex Song had anything to say about it. He was fantastic.
Oh, God bless you. Not every podcast has a shout out to Alex Song. But you gave a great interview in All for 11 a couple of years ago where you talked about switching club teams, I think your sophomore year of high school, and you realised that you were well behind your teammates in terms of soccer IQ, partially because you'd been so fast. Your coaches had just been content to let you charge forward, never really needing to teach you a tactical approach to the game, a more strategic sense, which is a really common predicament for young, fast footballers who can outrun anyone until they can't. But it's funny to picture that now, because when I watch you, see a player of a remarkably high soccer IQ, and it's immediately striking both on the pitch and when you talk about the game. Do you think having to do that work of catching up on your own at that age actually made you more of a student of football than you would have been otherwise?
Becky and I both read a book. It's called Grit by Angela Duckworth. It's nonfiction. It's a psychology book, and it talks about the most common trait in successful people, which is resilience. And I would say that when I switched club teams and I started playing for Shannon Sarofsky, who was also a world-renowned footballer for the U.S. women's national team. I mean, she was a dog when she played for the women. She was so good. But when I switched there and she started coaching me and telling me all these things, and I realized how far I was behind some other players in terms of understanding the game and tactics and whatnot, it really was a moment where I had to decide whether or not I was going to commit and put a lot more effort into learning the game. And I feel like that speaks to kind of the resilience that I've had. I've had a lot of failure in my career. You may not understand it, hear me saying it to you, but going through not having a really high soccer IQ around players who did have a better soccer IQ, it was really difficult.
You ended up playing 4 years of college soccer at Harvard. Zuckerberg was your commencement speaker. And you think of Harvard, I think traditional soccer powerhouse is way, way down the list of attributes that come to mind. Although in the post-Midge Purce era, who knows? But it is a choice that on one hand put you right in the recruiting eye line of the Boston Breakers, who trained back then on the Harvard fields next to yours. But also in a sense, it took you out of the core pool of elite college prospects coming out of Stanford or UNC, places that churn out world-class players. Is there anything you learned from your path less taken, Midge, as a pre-med student no less, either in football or outside of it, that you think shape you differently to other footballers?
Everyone's journey is so different that it's important not to follow what you think looks like high predictors for success. And I think when I was going into college, that's what I was looking at. I said, okay, well, the national team keeps picking up people from Stanford, which is very true still to this day. I mean, they take pictures at camp and there's 10 of them every time. So, I mean, again, I said I'm a woman of math and science, so it does sound like it makes it a bit more probable. However, it's okay to have your own path. But when I was picking colleges, I was definitely looking at the powerhouses that I thought would get me to the national team. And my dad just said, if you're good enough, they'll find you. Throughout my entire career at Harvard, that was what I was living by. It was really difficult. I didn't have access to the field all the time. I used to get up at 4 a.m. so I could go train on the Harvard football bubble before the football team got out there because they had 6 a.m.s. So the only time I could get on the field was 5 a.m. because I had class in the morning. So it's things like that where my dad would just say, you'll have to do things other people don't have to do, but if you're good enough, they'll find you.
God, I always thought if you're good enough, we'll find you is actually the official Harvard motto. But there's an interview you gave in Harvard Magazine from 2015 where you talk about, and I don't know if you remember this, you talk about build-up play in terms of thesis and antithesis between attacking partners. It's the only time I've seen Hegelian dialectics applied to goal scoring, but you are an attacker who thrives on chemistry. And watching you and Ife Onumonu and Christy Mewis combine for Gotham now, I mean, the potential of that trio is chef's kiss. 5 years out of college, 6 seasons into your professional career, do you still let yourself think about interplay and tactics in these more philosophical terms? Or is it just instinct at this point?
I don't remember thinking about them in those philosophical terms.
Maybe you're just dropping knowledge. You felt, I've got to come heavy for Harvard
Maybe
Magazine.
I was posturing.
You're like, as Nietzsche would say about the final third.
As Confucius suggests. No, I think maybe if I don't know what the prompted question was for me to compare it to expository writing.
Yes, I love it. So, dear listeners, 2 things I want you to glean from this. Number 1, if you're good enough, we'll find you. And number 2, when you're being interviewed for Harvard Magazine, just front. Just keep fronting. Come in
Make
heavy.
it till you make it.
Drop knowledge. Something that your coach at Gotham, Scott Parkinson, was talking about in a press conference early this season. The team sometimes seems to be missing that extra bit of magic in the final third. Not yet able to finish chances at the rate you were creating them. Not Hegelian enough, perhaps. But it's an issue that was front and centre after your game against Racing Louisville, where you guys hit the woodwork, and I'm sorry to bring up bad memories, 5 bloody times without scoring. And as a striker, when you're playing well, but things in a game just aren't clicking, what do you tell yourself about that? Is it a time for adjustments, or do you just believe that if you just keep showing up, things will start flowing your way?
I tell myself that anything I do in the future is not going to fix the past. It has no effect. So the reason I say that is because when I'm having a bad game or I'm getting really frustrated, I keep thinking about the things that I already did that are bad, and it makes my future actions a lot more stressful. I overthink them a lot more, and it makes it more likely that I continue to repeat the bad actions. But when I think about the fact that everything is separate, they're independent, they're exclusive events, then I can kind of compartmentalize in my mind, okay, it happened, but that has no effect on what I'm about to do. And so what I'm about to do can have a clean slate and I can be better.
We're going to get into NWSL nitty gritty and talk big storylines for the weekend in just one moment. But I do want to ask you about that mantra your dad used to repeat, if you're good enough, they'll find you. What does it mean to you hearing it at this moment? at this point in your career when it's actually proven to be bloody true in an amazing fashion?
You know, sometimes I forget about how much work actually went in to me getting to where I am right now. Like, it's a blur. I either blacked it out or I don't know. I forget a lot about it. All the times I cried on the field by myself, and just hard moments, getting cut from rosters, getting injured, droughts, not being able to score. It just puts a nice little happy ending on things, you know? It's like the end of a storybook where you say, and they lived happily ever after. Everything happened for a reason. It all came together at the end. It makes me feel a lot of pride, I think, in the journey.
All right, to the football, a bit of NWSL League curio to start us out. As of June 1st, the transfer window is now open. Enemies of the air, beware. It runs until the end of August. We should expect to see a fair bit of movement in the next 12 weeks as coaches tweak their squads to the demands of the season. For the media, the transfer window is a wonderful chaos. Rumours, speculation, reports flying out all hours. How do you experience it as a player?
To be quite honest, I didn't even know the transfer window was today or June 1st. Unless it has to do with my own movement, Ife's movement, Christie's movement, or someone coming to Gotham, I don't really pay much attention to it unless it's, you know, just groundbreaking news.
A lot of women's soccer Twitter has been whispering hopefully about getting Tobin Heath back now that she's left Arsenal. Last week, Ashlyn Harris put in her official Twitter request to get Sam Kerr back to Gotham. Is there a Midge Purce dream team transfer? Either a player you'd love to get at Gotham or a European player you'd love to face in the league?
Sam Kerr would be sick. I would love to play with Sam. I think Minima would be insane. I think she's so good. It would be amazing to play with her as well.
Why just one? Get them both. Get it done, Gotham, in every regard. But in a league where, as we often talk about, you can easily witness a tight 1-0 game between the top team and the bottom team, this was a weekend of emphatic wins, starting off with Houston Dash's 5-0 blowout against Orlando Pride on Friday night. Pride, as of Tuesday morning, have suspended head coach Amanda Cromwell as part of an ongoing NWSL investigation into workplace harassment. More details to come, but the win Friday night was all Houston. Nichelle Prince with the first hat-trick in Dash history. Michelle Alozie with her first goal in the league. Maria Sanchez with a stunning pass to set up a Rachel Daly, Robin Van Persie-esque diving header. And if there was a Puskas Award for best passes, that work of art would have won it. But Dash are now in second place. They're gaining on San Diego at the top of the table, unbeaten, 5 straight games. Midge, the Dash are looking positively 2020 Challenge Cup-esque at the moment. And when you look at a team like Houston, who've always been dangerous, but have often fallen short of their potential, when they have a run like this, does it inspire you?
This league is crazy. I really don't think people understand that literally anyone can win this league at any moment unless you watch every single game and realize that every team is very good. Every team can beat any team on a given day. And seeing the Dash come out like this, I'm honestly not that surprised at all. They definitely have all the tools to be a top contender. I mean, every team, when they're playing well, when they're gelling together, when they're on the same page, when they understand their principles, they can beat another team. So, you know, I'm excited to play them. We haven't played them yet. I definitely want to be the first to beat them. They're unbeaten, don't we all? I think Nichelle Prince is so good. I really do. And the thing is, I root for no one to score unless it's myself, Ify, Paige, Chrissy. You have to be on my team for me to want you to score. Other than that, I hope you miss the net 10 out of 10 times. But Nichelle Prince honestly has the reputation of an angel. She has to be the nicest person who has ever put on cleats in the NWSL. And if someone had to score a hat trick and their last name is not Purce, I'm happy it's Nichelle Prince.
Elsewhere in the land of emphatic wins, Portland Thorns shut out Angel City 3-0. Thorns looking well organised, and Angel City suddenly looking, well, knackered. We're taping this Tuesday. Angel City go again against the Dash tonight, which will be their third game in just 8 days. How hard is this season's schedule, Midge, with all the midweek games littered in? Not just littered, but crushed.
Oh my goodness. I mean, Washington Spirit, man. They're going on 2 weeks with 2 midweek games. I cannot fathom, though I may have to. I don't know what our schedule says later in the year. But that is hard. It's really hard. If you're a forward, if you're a winger, you're running like 900 meters of high speed running. Like high speed running. You're running very fast. You're running maybe 17 to 30 sprints, and you're supposed to do that Sunday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Mind you, after a normal Saturday game, you probably don't feel recovered completely until Tuesday. So now you have to play Wednesday and then Sunday. It's a lot on your body. It's ironic because the best thing to do after a game is to probably get a little lift in. You're actually supposed to get a little jog in, get the blood going, but you're like, no, I'm going to stay in bed and I'm going to have Five Guys. But it's probably not the best idea.
There's 2 approaches to life and football. But getting back to the football, North Carolina look much more like their old self Saturday, beating Racing Louisville 3-0 for their first win of the season. Bit of a win for Louisville as well, welcoming Dr. Nadia Nadim back onto the field for the first time this season. Godspeed to her. She'll be back on this podcast next week to talk about it. But Midge, before we move on from last weekend, I want to talk about goals. Scientifically, objectively, goal of the week by any standard. I mean, your 21st minute close range wonder, which saw Gotham pass Washington Spirit. And I watched you finish that from close range, and it made me wonder several things really. First, does any part of you have fear of missing as you're about to strike the ball?
No, not really. Not one of those. Ify put that ball on a platter. I think my real concern was hitting the post, which I did end up hitting the post. And I think people were like, why did you hit the post? And they don't understand. I was running really fast and I couldn't slow down unless I left my feet. And it was either hit the post running or hit the post sliding. So I elected to slide. However, I did get some coaching points about make sure the ball hits the back of the net when you're finishing your tap ins. And I was like, why? Do you get an extra point for it hitting the back of the net, or does it just have to cross the line?
By the way, what I was trying to lip read what you said when you turned around to celebrate with Ify. What was that?
Oh, I said thank you. I have class. I was just being polite.
There needs to be more of that in football, where whoever scores just turns around and just shouts, thank you. God bless. Spread the love. The real question, how many runs like that into the box are you making in a game that aren't seen, never mind rewarded with such a great pass, that we don't necessarily even witness to culminate in that one close range finish? I mean, you made that look easy, but looking is really the key word here.
When we were watching the game back, that was actually my third, maybe 70-yard run that I had. The thing is, you never know which one is going to be the one where you actually get the ball to tap it in. So I think every time it looks like it's going to happen, in my head, I'm like, oh, this is the one. And I just tell myself that.
I love this. Now you've left me thinking whether, in your mind, shouldn't just be Nichelle Prince who finished the weekend with a hat trick, but Godspeed. This is shaping up to be a high-scoring season across the board. Alex Morgan's brace against Kansas City this weekend put her at an eye-popping 8 goals for the season so far. We're only just a little over a month in. Ashley Hatch won the Golden Boot last year with 10 goals. For point of reference, is this just Alex Morgan doing Alex Morgan things, or do you feel from the inside teams in general are coming in with more of an offensive mindset than they were last season?
So, one, I think Alex Morgan is in fantastic form. So I do think she has earned her goals. And 2, I think that the league got 2 new teams, which means there are about 50 new jobs, which means every team has been diluted in strength somewhere. It's much harder to score when you have these really, really strong teams on both sides. Defensively, you had walls. And now it's a little bit more Swiss cheesy. So I think, yeah, there are more holes in backlines. I think there are more holes throughout every single team. When you have holes, you have goals.
This is like one of the great marketing meetings of all time. Where you have holes, you have goals. That is the motto for the league I want to watch as it grows in the future. Come on, you Swiss cheese. To the weekend ahead. And what a weekend of wonder we've got coming up as the tectonic plates in the table continue to shift under us. Kicking us off, we've got the Washington Spirit versus the North Carolina Courage, 7 p.m. Eastern Saturday on Paramount Plus. It'll be the first time these two teams have met since their brutal Challenge Cup final. Washington Spirit still sporting some caps in their roster due to injuries suffered unnecessarily, really, in that game. Hopefully they'll have Trinity Rodman back after losing her to COVID protocols last weekend. Courage attempting to claw their way back up from the bottom of the table. 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Angel City go to Louisville for a Kristen Press, Jessica McDonald tete-a-tete with a dash of newly returned Dr. Nadia Nadim sprinkled in. That game goes live on Twitch 8:30. And for all you Midge Purce devotees, it's Kansas City Current versus Gotham on Paramount Plus. Midge, first time you're facing them this season. It's really a different proposition than last season, defined in part by Sam Mewis and Lynn Williams-sized holes due to injury in their roster, but they do have rookie Elise Bennett and veteran Kristen Hamilton combining up front. Can you give us a taste of their threat, Midge?
Yeah, they play a 3-5-2, so that's going to be really interesting against our 4-3-3. We started off the season playing a 3-5-2, and we thought a 4-3-3 fit us better with our personnel, so the spaces aren't going to match up perfectly. It's going to be a really interesting matchup in terms of structure. We haven't played them. They're a completely new team. They're not the same Kansas City they had last year. So I'm really excited to play something new, something fresh, something where they don't know which way I'm going to go. They don't know which way Ife's going to go. And we don't know their way either. We just have to play the best we can read the game. Well, I rate Kristen Hamilton. I think she's so good. I think she's really good. I think she's so dangerous in the box, and she's one of those players who she can make something out of nothing. It's just a random ball flighted in the box, but somehow she gets it in the back of the net.
On Sunday, Alex Morgan and the San Diego Wave take on the Alana Cook-led OL Reign backline for the second time in 2 weeks. That goes down 5 p.m. Eastern Time on the old PP. Reign won the first clash with a 1-0 victory that was not as close as it sounds. We'll see if San Diego can regroup and keep their place at the top of the table. At 6 p.m. Eastern, it's Mal Pugh's Red Stars versus Sydney Leroux's Orlando Pride on Paramount Plus. And at 7 p.m, we got Houston Dash versus the Portland Thorns. God, I cannot wait for that game. Dash, of course, besting the Thorns in a 2-0 shutout last time. They knocked heads. Considering the results of the past weekend, Megan Klingenberg could not have been more on point when she told us last week that the Dash are a team who know who they are, which is what makes them so bloody dangerous. That game also going down on Paramount Plus. Godspeed. I genuinely cannot wait for this weekend's slate of games. Visit paramountplus.com/MIBTWG. That's MIBTWG to try 1 week of Paramount Plus free on us. It is time to close out for the week, and I'm going to give the last word to you, Midge, to close us out on a note of optimism. My Lord, do we ever need it? As I say every week, this is a dark world with so much profound challenge all around us. Can you tell us the thing that's brought you joy this week, Midge, offering a sense that even just for a moment, everything's going to be okay?
In my personal life, something that has been a large change in what's happening is I have decided to take my talents to TikTok. I did a soft launch just to get a feel for the market. And there definitely is a demand for Gotham-themed content. So I feel inspired. You know, my dream job is to actually be a Marvel character in one of the movies. If I could ever do that, I would love to be Spider-Girl or something of the sort.
You know what they say in the Marvel universe? Midge, if you're good enough, they'll find you. So don't talk about it as if it's a dream that will never come true. Just keep believing. That is it for the women's game this week. We'll be back this time next week with, I cannot wait for this, Dr. Nadia Nadim and Becky Sauerbrunn, who, if she's not a doctor, she's some kind of a professor. She's the people's captain. Oh, but for this week, Godspeed. Thanks, Midge Purce.
And thank you to you. See you all next week.
We will be back next Thursday. Godspeed, America, and courage.